As an educator and an assembly member, I am committed to education for our students. We know now more than ever our students are struggling not only to pay their rents, to be able to work, to pay for food and other essentials, but also to go to college. And AB, our new legislation, is something that was embedded when our fathers, in 1960, the legislature approved the Donahoe Higher Education Act, better known as the California Master Plan of Education, which reaffirmed California's longtime commitment to the principle of tuition-free education to the residents of the state. However, tuition has continued to skyrocket ever since its inception, reducing access to our institutions of higher education and denying students and their families the dream of obtaining a degree. When I introduced this legislation, we know that there are many demands on the California budget. We know that there are housing issues, transportation issues, and we know that as our state and as the chair of the Jobs Committee, that we need to have 1 million more degrees to fill our workforce gap. With that, we also know that our serious decisions for our leaders as far as funding comes. My bill, AB 393, titled the Student Protection Act, will place a moratorium on tuition mandatory system and enrollment fees for Cal State and community college students through the 2019-2020 academic year. This moratorium will give students and their families peace of mind that the already high costs of higher education will be capped for the near future as the legislature works on long-term funding solutions for the three segments of our higher education system. This won't be easy, and we're at the very beginning stages of this legislation. We know that we will have serious talks with our caucus members. We will have serious talks with our Senate friends and with our governor. The investment in education is the investment of our future.
The specific systemic problem we confront today is the long, gradual abandonment of the state's commitment to fund the CSU and other public higher education segments. If the CSU had a level of funding comparable to what it was funded at in 1985, the People's University today would have an additional $773 million in its operating budget. In 1947, just before the Master Plan for California was passed, President Truman said, and I quote, "If the ladder of educational opportunity rises high at the doors of some youth and scarcely rises at the doors of others, then education may become the means not of eliminating race and class distinctions, but of deepening and solidifying them," end quote. The Student Protection Act is an important step in the right direction in making certain that the ladder of educational opportunity is available to all of the students of California, not just for those who can afford to pay.
I do not have a trust fund. I do not have a blanket of my parents' money to cover me at night. I do not expect help. I'm here to make it on my own. My family's dream has always been for me to receive an education. But at what cost? Cost. How much does a tuition increase cost? If you aren't already aware, the Board of Trustees is considering a tuition increase of $270, which many students can't afford. $270 is 8 cans of baby formula. $270 is a quarter of my paycheck. $270 is half of somebody's rent. $270 is maybe a textbook if you're lucky. $270 is food for 2 months. And $270 may not sound much to a legislator or a trustee with a 6-figure salary, but to a student in the CSU system, $270 means more than you can imagine. The fact is, many CSU students are already struggling. My friends are struggling, my relatives are struggling, my classmates are struggling. Tuition has been too high for too long, and it's time we stop putting the burden on students. Our government's responsibility is to help us, not drown us in a sea of debt. I pray you understand that CSU students are not just statistics. We feel the consequences of state action, no matter how insignificant it may seem to you. We have families, we have jobs, we share a common dream, getting education. We each have a story. Thank you for letting me share mine.
As the state's funding continues to be outpaced by the growth in Cal State student enrollment, the long-term shortfall in state funding that has accumulated over the years has had massive implications for students, particularly when it comes to skyrocketing tuition, which has grown to 923% over the last 30 years. I'm going to say that again. It's hard to believe, 923%. Students are already strapped with the highest annual tuitions in California history, which have more than doubled in 2006 to over $5,472 for the Cal State universities. In addition, many Cal States have added fees, and these fees, although students are very interested in them, have added to this debt. Homelessness and food insecurity are also harsh realities for many students today. According to the study commissioned by the Cal State University, 1 in 10 students is homeless and 1 in 5 students does not always have food. Recently, some universities have even opened food banks. Cal State students also work. We know they work to pay for their college, not for extra spending, but to meet their basic needs. This is very troubling because of the high tuition costs. It also has reduced access to our institutions for higher education, and they deny students their future degrees and their families the degree and the dream of getting a college education. This runs counter to the master plan that was obtained in the 1960s. So I'm here to ask for your support, along with the students that we have here, the faculty and professors who see these students every day come to their classrooms. They know their dedication. They know that they are there to change their lives, transform their life, and that's why they stand here today with the students to say, let's put a moratorium on student fees.